The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Albany County News. I'm Mary Rozak, the Director of Communications for Albany County. And in the next half hour or so, we're going to talk about yet another department that has undergone quite a few changes during the pandemic and post-pandemic. And there are some programs that have stuck around. Some have even gotten even more attention than they had before. And one that's all brand new and you need to know about, especially if you're behind on your rent, to see if you qualify, and that's called HEAP. So joining me today is Michele McClave, the Albany County Commissioner for the Department of Social Services. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a long time, and I've said that to each of the folks that sat in that chair as we come back from a time that for some meant working from home, doing things differently, maybe a little bit of a slower pace. Not necessarily the case at all for the Department of Social Services. Before we talk about the emergency rental assistance program, let's talk about what life was like. Let's go back March of 2020 to now. When things shut down, there are things that cannot stop happening, cannot stop operating in county government. And one of them is providing much needed services to the folks that need a roof over their head, that need to be able to put food on the table, to be able, as we try to pay our rent, to do all kinds of things. What did that mean for the Department of Social Services that week in March when everything closed down?
Well, it was never a thought in our mind that we would ever stop, that we would close down, or that we would ever stop serving people. I mean, that's our mission. That's what we're required to do. We knew we were always going to continue to have to take applications for benefits, and as a matter of fact, in several of our areas, the applications skyrocketed because people were panicking. Mm-hmm. People had lost their jobs. They didn't know what was going to happen, and they looked, where could I potentially get some support? And DSS was one of those places where they first went.
Well, this was different, though, than anything that we'd ever experienced before, and different and a trying time because many of the services that are provided, there are mandates that people have to be seen in person. It's not something that people could call in or could go on a computer and do or mail things in. That had to be an obstacle in and of itself. And it wasn't just at the county level, it's because we're mandated by the state and in some instances by the federal government for certain things. Talk to me about that challenge.
Well, one of the things that this really was an opportunity to educate the public for us was, for instance, there's certain programs that you never do have to come in. Mm-hmm. We can do everything electronically or by phone. So, for instance, SNAP applications, we don't ever have to see you. Okay. So we really stress that with people who were calling us, what we can do without you coming into the office. And then we eventually, a couple months after the epidemic started, the state gave us relief, temporary relief that has been pulled back now, but temporary relief from having to see people one-on-one in person for our temporary assistance applications, for our fair hearings, for our employment readiness. We were able to do all of those things by telephone. Mm-hmm. So we could do interviews that we were required to do previously in person, we were able to do by phone. And so that was a really helpful adjustment and enabled us to continue to provide the benefits. Mm-hmm. And without having to force people to come in. And at that time, no vaccines, really masks were still in question in the beginning, and so we were able to keep a lot of people from coming into our reception area, mm-hmm. gathering together in groups, which would not have been safe.
And you were able then to have people who could work remotely. because of that change.
That for some of the
some things.
programs, yes, we were able. Our staff continued to come into the building every single day since March 20th, March 13th of 2020. We were, because we're so connected to state processing systems and state software and that kind of thing, it was a little bit more difficult for DSS to work from home. And we had to, and there's paper that's shared
Sure.
from people, so it's a little more difficult. There were certain categories of people that could do some work from home. We have caseworkers in our adult protective unit that were able to go to do their home visits from home, and they're out in the field all day anyway, so they were able to. So where we could, we allowed people to work from home. But because we processed so much paper, it was really difficult for the bulk of people to be able to work from home.
It had to be a challenge too for, not everyone, when you have to process paper, not everyone who needs assistance may have the means at home to be able to scan something or fax something or whatever to get it to you. And in this instance, libraries were closed. Other places
Right.
where you normally could go and do something like that were closed. How challenging was that?
That was very challenging because there, as you said, there's a certain subset of folks, sometimes elderly folks in particular, aren't smartphone savvy, or obviously don't have scanner ability and that kind of thing, and may not even have a computer at home, and do rely on resources like libraries to access the internet. So they had to continue to come in. We would give them paper applications, and they would, and where they were able, we asked them to go home and fill it out and then bring it back to us. But we also worked with people on the phone and tried to help them through the benefits application online. But many papers are hard copy, and they had to come in. And so we developed a system where you could quickly, hopefully, drop them off, and then we would send them back to you. Some people don't like to leave without their original copies, though.
Right.
So they would have to wait, and we had only a certain number of people we were allowing in reception at any one time.
Sure.
But because of these other methods that we put in place for electronically dealing with people, so the traffic was a little bit lower for those. But again, there's just certain people who they just need a paper application, and they can only fill out. That's the only way they can apply.
Sure. So a year and a half later, we're back in offices. We're back wearing masks, right? In many instances, vaccinated or not, indoors. I mean, that is a mandate in Albany County facilities. What has changed? What have you noticed that has changed from a year and a half ago? Or because you were in the building essentially so much?
Yeah.
Do you even notice a change?
The only change we noticed is something that we had predicted, which was, as I said, our SNAP applications, they were skyrocketing, and they have throughout the whole epidemic. They've been really higher than normal. And some of our other programs were a little bit lower, and of course, because evictions were not happening,
Right.
we have a lot of people coming into our doors because they are back on their rent or back on their utilities or something. But when all of that was on hold, people didn't need to come in and get emergency rent applications processed. So we saw a reduction in those kinds of applications. So as we predicted, though, once unemployment ran out and once some of the eviction courts opened again and the courts in general are starting to open, we knew we were going to get an influx of a lot of people. And in the last month, we have seen that. Our applications for temporary assistance are more than double what they previously, like in June compared to June. People are coming in, more people who have evictions, and we're sending them to this rent assistance program or are worried about getting evicted. So more people are becoming alert that they either have a problem or they're going to have a problem. So they're coming in.
Okay. let's jump right in and talk about ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, because that has gotten a lot of attention. You know, people, both good and bad. I know that there are people who could not pay their rent, and during that period of time, and the moratorium has extended, correct?
Governor Kathy Hochul has extended it till January 15th.
So people,
under certain circumstances, yes.
So you cannot be evicted for non-payment of rent?
Correct.
Okay. So people were experiencing those dire financial situations and not able to, you know, you don't want to make a choice. You don't want to have to make a choice between paying the rent, keeping the heat on, the lights on, feeding your family, maybe taking medication if you're maybe an older adult that's reliant on medication and a very fixed income. But on the flip side, ERAP all of a sudden was, well, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, we've had money since January, February. We were forced, I believe it was February, we had gotten the money. Albany County was given a choice by then Governor Cuomo of sign over the money that you've got so far, that we have not provided you with a means of handing it out. So you either sign it over to us and we'll administer, or if you decide to administer it yourself, you won't get any other money should you need any more. That, in essence, is the long and short of it. And then Albany County and many other counties across the state signed over the money, and nothing happened. Nothing happened for months. You were sitting in the hot seat, so to speak, right? Because people are coming and saying, okay, I'm supposed to be able to access a website or get information, and what could you tell them?
We were waiting for the state to create the website. It was so it's an online portal, and there's no hard copy applications. You must apply online. So it took the state a while to get that portal up and running. I think it was June 1st when they first opened the portal. But there's some good protections in place that went along with the state's implementation of ERAP, and that is one of the things that we want tenants to know, is if you're facing eviction for non-payment and you file an application on ERAP portal while it's pending, you can't be evicted, and then if you become eligible, payment will be made to your landlord, and you can't be evicted for not paying your rent in the past. And you can't be evicted for up to 12 months after that for non-payment of that rent. So that can't be held against you, basically, that you didn't pay your rent. So basically right now, some funds are starting to be released, and landlords are starting to be paid. We have had a $1.7 million approved payments in Albany County so far, so it's moving a little bit quicker. We have over 2,900 applications that have been made on behalf of Albany County tenants.
Any idea of the kind of money that
the average, it looks like the average application for past rent is about $5,500. So our it's a little lower than I expected, which might mean that people actually tried to pay some of their rent. So, you know, there are many, many circumstances, and some people, as you said, couldn't or didn't pay any rent, but then there are people who made an effort and tried to pay what they could each month, so they don't owe the whole rent.
So we've read in the paper the horror stories of, you know, someone not paying his rent and not caring that the landlord, just saying you can't evict me, and then going on a vacation to Florida with the family. And then you hear you know, on the side of the landlord, you know, hey, I have this house and it's a duplex, and half of it is, you know, rented out, and the other half I live in, and I can't afford not to get paid. We've heard stories about tenants who say, well, you can't throw me out, and falsely, and I want you to correct this. You can't throw me out, and you know what? Why should I even go and sign up? Because the money doesn't come to me, it goes directly to you. So if I don't sign up, you don't get it, Mr. Landlord. And tough, there's nothing that can be done about it. There is something ultimately that the tenant needs to realize.
So you will be evicted, yes. If you
will be responsible for...
And right, actually, you will carry that debt wherever you go, right? That debt will be still yours.
Right, right.
Yeah.
any insight as to why it was set up this way, where the tenant must apply in order for the landlord to be paid? Any idea?
Because it came through the federal government originally as an eviction prevention. So it was for eviction prevention of tenants. So that's why the focus was on the tenant applying and being prevented from being evicted.
Yeah, I know that question has come up a number of times from those on the other side saying, hey, we're the landlords and we should be able to say, hey, X, Y, and Z families have not paid and be able to apply.
And it requires both the landlord and tenant to be cooperative and both fill out a component of the application, and sometimes there's disagreements. But that's where we come in. We have an ERAP outreach and engagement program, and if there's someone who it's not working out between the two of them, we can work with both of them and hopefully try to convince them both that this is in their best interest to both apply. And we've done that a number of times, and usually it works because both parties have a vested interest in making sure. But I want to say one thing, though, that the state just allocated $125 million. It's not open yet, but it will be for landlords only. Landlords can apply directly if the tenant left their premises, left the residence without payment during the COVID epidemic. They can apply for this money to get reimbursed for someone who's left without pay.
Someone who would and probably has no intention of ever filling out something like that.
So there'll be some money for that, which is good.
Well, that's a bit of a relief, I think, probably for some landlords to hear. And at the same time, while we're talking about this, is anybody and everybody eligible? I'm sure there are some income requirements. Not anybody listening to this.
Well, they keep changing them, and it's becoming pretty wide.
Okay.
In the beginning, the first, they wanted to take care of the people who were the lowest income, so the first 30 days, it was of applications of veterans, disabled folks, and people under 50% of the average median income in the area. So now, originally it was up to 80% of the average median income. You could be eligible if that was your income. Now it is there's a component that the state just created to allow for 80% to 100% of area median income. So it should cover a good number of people. So and the area median incomes are listed on through our website. Yep. You can get to that and you can see what the area median incomes
and
are.
Actually,
you do. You've got it.
I print out only the 80%.
So
is up there at that point. But that's interesting to know. So anyone listening to this shouldn't naturally assume that they would not qualify. They should. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You apply and you're denied.
Right. I would. Yeah. Anybody who's behind in rent, I would encourage them to apply.
And the deadline. While we want people to apply now, how long is this program available?
Right now, it goes till September 2022.
Okay, so next year.
Yep.
Or until the money runs out, right?
Until the money runs out. If there's a need, I'm assuming there'll be some additional funding, but I think the state's intent is to get most of this money out before September 2022. But I'm sure there'll be some applications that, for various reasons, weren't submitted.
Sure. I know because we, Senator Schumer at one point had indicated that, things were moving at such a tortoise pace, right? So there was an indication that if things weren't done by this September, that the money was going to be moved to other states that were actually getting the money out faster. So that's a bit of a change.
And actually, New York State is now doing better than most other states.
Okay.
So they've pulled it together, and they've committed almost $1 billion committed. It hasn't been paid yet, but that means processing applications and approved for payment.
Okay.
So that money will be going out the door unless there's some reason that the persons weren't eligible. Or they could have already been paid, but it's almost $1 billion that has been committed.
Sure.
So that's pretty good from June, from where we were in June.
Certainly from where we were. And so just as we're going to talk about some other programs, any information that you want to find out about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, go to albanycounty.com. You will navigate yourself to departments and then to social services, and it's right on that home page. You can find out more. I am talking with the Albany County Commissioner of Social Services, Michele McClave, today. Let's talk about some of the other programs, because when we started talking about the pandemic and the increased need and things that you've seen more people applying for different programs, you talked about SNAP, and we should, for those people who are not aware of what SNAP is, it's a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, so really putting food on the table. Tell me about how much you said that the need, you saw more applications coming in than you had before.
Yeah, I mean, it was more than double the number of applications normally, especially in the beginning, and actually they're going up again, I think, probably related to unemployment running out. I don't know why, but we were seeing an increase of applications again. And a lot of the really good, some of the good things from the epidemic was a lot of money was put into SNAP. There were supplements provided. Everybody received if you were eligible for SNAP, you received the maximum amount for your category.
Okay.
Previously, you would receive a portion of that depending on your income. And then they were also plus 15%. And so the amount of money going out the door to people for food during the pandemic was significant. It was pretty high.
And that's all put on electronically on an EBT card?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Like a credit card kind of thing, yep.
So there are approved purchases. So I don't think
Yes,
people
yeah.
understand. It's not as if you're just given, here's the cash, go out and use it any way you want. It is an EBT card, and certain things can be paid for with it, and certain things are denied. You can't.
You have to be able to eat it. It has to be a food product.
Okay, so not toothpaste, not toilet paper.
No, those kinds of things, unfortunately, for some of our very low income, it's very difficult for them to get, because those can be very expensive diapers and
Sure.
all of that. So also, though, the USDA recently changed the formula for allocation, and people they're making a permanent increase to the amount of SNAP benefits that households can receive. I think it went up again by 15% permanently. So that's good. So that means, for a household of one, it would be around $230 a month. So it's supplemental is in the name. It's never meant to be all of your food, to meet all of your food needs for the month. It's supposed to supplement what you're already doing, but certainly increasing it at any time, it's food.
Sure.
It helps. It helps. So
Certainly does. So the SNAP benefits, you said, those are one of the things that people never have to come in to the office. So tell me,
Yes.
someone's hearing this and it's the first time. What do? They go to the website first of all, probably, to take a look.
You can find the link through the Albany County website, but it's also mybenefits.ny.gov.
Okay.
And you can get an application in there for multiple benefits, temporary assistance, SNAP, HEAP. You can apply through that portal for many of these benefits for New York State. And then what happens is you apply and you identify as Albany County, and then the application comes to Albany County DSS staff. And we process the application. We are required to talk to you, to interview you. So we can do that by phone, though. So you never have to, as I said, come into the building to get your SNAP benefits or to even get recertified. It's required once a year to get recertified. And so we can do all that by phone.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate with the people that are out there and that are thinking this and want someone to say it. What do you have to do to ensure that you are being honest in your need? Because there are those who are not always honest about whether or not they need this assistance. And how does that work?
Well, we have a whole fraud unit that investigates any potentially identified persons who may be misrepresenting themselves. So that might be that their income is much higher than they've represented to us. And we have ways to determine exactly what your income is. Even we will call your employer if that is necessary, and we have the legal authority to do that, to confirm what your income is, what you're saying your income is, and what it is. We ask for W-2s, we ask for tax returns, we ask for there's a lot of documentation to prove that what you're telling us is true. The biggest problem we would have in fraud, and it's a very small number of people, of course, who ever commit fraud, really, but is that you neglect to tell us something. So you may have 2 jobs and you only tell us you have 1. So we eventually find out, though. And then you have to pay it back.
Right.
And then you may be disqualified from ever receiving it in the future or for a certain period of time. So there are checks and balances, and you know, you've got to give us your birth certificate, you've got to give us, you know, everything on you that, and then we have electronic means of looking things up also to confirm.
And it's amazing too, the amount of tips that will come in.
Oh yeah.
Because people are out there making sure that they're holding others' feet to the fire, because there's so many people who need and legitimately qualify for this that a few bad apples is not.
It's program integrity, and we want to keep the program, the integrity of the program intact, so that it will still be there for people who need it. So
we're heading into, heaven help us, we're heading into again, and so that means HEAP, the Heating Energy Assistance Program. So tell me, when does the program officially open, or is it already open?
Yeah, that's the other thing that happened during the epidemic. The HEAP season, both years, were almost all year round.
Okay.
I think we were closed in August, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Usually it's only like a 6-month program.
Yeah.
But these last 2 years, it has been basically an almost all year round program.
Wow, okay.
So, and as long as the funds were there, and they were there, we were able to keep processing and paying HEAP applications. And so this year, it's open October 1st.
Okay.
And it will restart a new HEAP year October 1st. So that's for both people who already receive certain benefits will get an automatic payment, and then there are those who are behind or don't have any oil, or a quarter of a tank or less of oil, propane issues, whatever, wood pellets will pay for.
Is this a one-time payment during the season, or how
So
does that work?
there's usually, you can get one payment and then an emergency payment. It's just the lingo that they use. So it's basically 2, but then we just heard there's going to be another new program for this year.
A booster.
A booster program. So if you're way behind on your utility bills, and it's got to be utility, not oil, not anything delivered.
Okay.
But for utility bills, if you have bills up to $10,000, we can pay it.
Wow.
So there'll be a certain allocation of resources available for that. Previously, we had a limit much lower than that we could pay. So sometimes people get way behind, and they'll have their utilities shut off or can't get it turned on until they pay this bill. This bill will help them get it returned on. So it's going to be a really good program.
That's a lifesaver.
It will be.
I would say it is a lifesaver. It is, once you get behind on something, and it's almost impossible to dig your way out with the economic circumstances, especially that many folks have found themselves
You have a $5,000 bill for utilities. You can't do it. You just can't.
How do you do it?
Right.
Incredible. So we have all of these programs, whether it's ERAP, I love all the acronyms, right? Whether it's ERAP or SNAP or HEAP or temporary assistance,
right?
At least that's 2 full words. All of these programs, people can find out more information if they go to a state website or if they go to albanycounty.com.
It's all on there, yep. And the links to the application portals are right on there too. And for HEAP, we have Cornell Cooperative Extension. You can make an application through them, and they will help you. They will go to your home if you are homebound, and help you fill out an application as well. And that's on our website too, how to get in touch with them.
Perfect. Michele, thank you. And it's good to actually be back with you in person.
I know.
We've been talking to Michele McClave, the Commissioner for the Albany County Department of Social Services. I'm Mary Rozak, the Director of Communications for Albany County. For more information on any of these programs, www.albanycounty.com. We'll see you again soon.